Hello, good morning. Welcome to the Dailies on Network Television. Today, the 27th of 2024, and we have quite a number of stories we would love to look at this morning. We're seeing that Labour will be having the meeting, the fact that they are not happy that the FEC have actually dropped down the issue of the minimum wage. So whatever they are coming up with today will determine what the president will come to consult them about. So we have other stories as well on the paper. We'd love you to, air your own views and contribution concerning any of that. I have Rachel Tanzania with me. Good morning.
Morning, Sally.
Morning. And I'm Stella Elisha Dasher. We shall go straight into the paper, and Rachel will be taking us through the first paper for today.
The first paper for today is Nigerian Tribune. The big story: explosion aimed to justify call for emergency rule in Rivers. And we have that statement coming from Fubara. One suspect arrested receiving treatment. A report from the police. You can find details on page 4. El-Rufai fights back, sues Kaduna Assembly over 432 billion naira probe report. Kenyan President Ruto bows to pressure, withdraws tax hikes after deadly protests. You can find details on page 2. Tinubu has approved international status for Ibadan Airport, coming from Makinde. My over 12-year trial by AFCC, a harrowing experience, coming from Ikuforiji. I'm happy I've been vindicated, he says. Details can be found on page 11. Federal government approved disbursement of students' loan to successful applicants. Nigeria recorded 75,000 new HIV infections in 2023, and this is a report from NACA. You can find details on page 3, and I believe this report means that people are starting to lose guard and becoming relaxed concerning STDs. You should take that seriously. More details can be found on page 3. Recapitalization will create stronger, more resilient banks, coming from the CBN governor. Nigeria plagued by influx of substandard imported products, coming from the Standard Organization of Nigeria, says 80% of imported goods substandard. Over 64 million people suffer from drug use and disorders. A report from the UN agency, the writer says Tinubu rallies support for drug war, assures NDLEA of more help. Agency's drug test kits a necessity for every home, school, office, coming from Marwa. Details can be found on page 3 and 15. 36 governors meet in Abuja over new minimum wage and local government autonomy. Details can be found on page 2. And then we have a picture story where we can see the NDLEA celebrating the drug day, and you can find details inside the paper. And that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
On First News newspaper, court orders final forfeiture of $1.4 million linked to a method. On the NFVCB crackdown, releasing unclassified kits, music videos, non-punishable offense. You can find more detail as well in the paper. Nigeria record $24 billion FX inflow in the first quarter of 2024, says CBN Governor Cardoso. El-Rufai drags Kaduna Assembly to court over alleged misappropriation of 432 billion naira. We will record that actually he was the one they are alleging, and he's suing the paper. Explosion in Rivers aim at staging insecurity for emergency rule, coming from Fubara, the governor of Rivers State. And bloodbath, 2,600 lives lost in a year of terror. Amnesty International demands accountability. 18 out of 23 Benue LGA under constant threat from armed attackers, and we hope something needs to be done about that, those local government areas. Anambra funds paid into private companies' account. Witness testify in Obionu's case. You can find details of that in the paper. Court slashes June 5th to hear suit seeking Ganduji's removal as APC chair. And we have the pictures where we can see the River State Governor Fubara with Senate Committee on Privatization and Communalization in Port Harcourt on Wednesday, which was yesterday. And that's all the First News newspaper.
On the Matrix newspaper, mounting debt, Nigeria borrowed 7.71 trillion naira, not 24.33 trillion naira in the first quarter of 2024. The Debt Management Office is explaining now this is accumulated loan from what it was 97 trillion, I believe. And then now we have a debt profile of 121 trillion naira. So it's not that in the first quarter it was the whole 24. From the last report of what was being borrowed was 97 as our total debt profile, but now it's up to 121, meaning in that span from the last report we had over 24. But for the first quarter of 2024 it was just 7.71 trillion naira. Still on the Matrix newspaper, Euro 2024 round of 16, England to play Slovakia, Belgium squares up against France and other ties. Details can be found on page 16. Looming strike, federal government swings into action meets ASU. Proposed strike can be averted if words are matched with actions, a statement from ASU. Rivers dynamite scare, Fubara says masterminds hoping for state of emergency as Kalu seeks Tinubu's intervention. Amid dwindling oil output, NNPC Limited records 400 incidents of oil theft in 1 week. The big story, new minimum wage. Governors assure Labour of better package. Says we remain dedicated to the process and assures that better wages will result. Governors to continue engaging with stakeholders to reach a mutually agreeable solution. Anything above 62,000 naira will create crisis. This is a warning from the NECA boss. You can find details on page 2. Minor fire breaks out at Dangote refinery, put out. You can find details on page 9. On the 432 billion naira probe report, El-Rufai sues Kaduna Assembly Commissioner of Justice. Again, Otedola splashes 183 million naira on fresh shares in the First Bank Nigerian Holdings. And we have a picture story, condolence visit, Nigeria Governors Forum chairman who also doubles as Kwara State Governor, Abdulrahman Abdulrazak, during a condolence visit to Vice President Kashim Shettima over the death of his mom. Also an entertainment story, we have Don slams Chama's family for marrying daughter off in Lagos. You can find details on page 14 concerning the Chivido 2024, and that's all the news on the Matrix newspaper.
And on Blueprint newspaper, still looking at what happened in Benue State, where we've seen 2,600 killed in 50 Benue communities in 1 year, still coming from the amnesty. And as well, we are having from GP Gerba, he's saying, I won't compromise my mandate over Kanu crisis. On business, Nigeria must harness diaspora dollars to avoid debt trap coming from Rwanda. And then on sports, on Olympics, we're having Brunei promises hard work for podium finish in Paris, more detailed in the paper. 432 billion naira fraud, El-Rufai sues Kaduna Assembly, seek 1 billion naira damages. Once committee report voted, you can find detail of that in the paper. NDLEA makes 52,901 arrests, secure 9,000 conviction in 3 years, where we're seeing destroy 1,057 hectares of cannabis farm, more detail in the paper. As well, Tinubu committed to press freedom, protection of journalists coming from the federal government. Charges practitioners on sense of duty, responsible journalism. Leadership Chair Abati Kinipi orders hail Azu. You can find more detail of that in the paper. Tinubu not discriminating against North. This is coming from Shetima. CBN optimistic about taming inflation coming from Kadusu. And then we have Ruto withdraws finance bill as 23 Kenyans die in protest. More detail of that can be found. And we have think tank blames enemies over Dangote refinery fire incident. You can find that as well in the paper. And we have the picture story during the book launch that actually happened, the book unveiling. You can read more on that in the paper, and that's all on Blueprint newspaper.
On Vanguard newspaper, CBN discontinues price verification system as criteria for import. This is on Forex. You can find details on page 19. Edo Guba Ozezwa loses bid to disqualify Godalo. You can find details on page 7. The writer says, we'll make youth leaders of today, not future. On insecurity, 2,600 killed, 50 communities record 135 attacks in Benue, report from Amnesty International. From pen to profit, federal government reaffirms commitment to free press. The big story is on cholera, federal government shopping for emergency vaccine. The writer says as Nigeria records 54 deaths, 1,579 cases in 32 states. A report from the NCDC, poor sanitation, contaminated water reason for spread, coming from Sanwo-Olu. Display product essential information, Lagos government directs stores. Protesters want declaration of emergency in Rivers as Fubara alleges protester attempt to bomb hotel. Details can be found on page 12. 432 billion naira probe report, ex-governor El-Rufai drags Kaduna Assembly to court. Osun Monarch 4 orders docked for alleged arson and robbery. Details can be found on page 10. And we have a column by Olufasan on page 16. And sports 2026 FIFA World Cup. We have Ubede teased Bafana to qualify ahead Super Eagles. Details can be found on page 30, a picture story where we can see at E offering market engagement. And that's all the news on Vanguard newspaper.
On Leadership newspaper, Nigeria sent 177 peacekeeping soldiers to Guinea-Bissau. You can find out on page 8. Dangote refinery fire contained operations ongoing. And we have concerning the 432 billion naira fraud, El-Rufai files 1 billion naira damages suit against Kaduna Assembly. More detail found on page 4. And we have writing for media, monetizing it, compass for future coming from the minister. It will propel writers out of perjury coming from Inda Isaac. And then we also have the future is here, says panelists. So you can read more detail what the panel have to say about that. Still on Leadership newspaper, Tinubu rally support for drug war, as yesterday we celebrated the World Drug Day, where we are seeing the ban of using of illicit drugs unnecessarily. Out of school children drops by 1 million in the northeast, coming from UNICEF. A student drowned in Kaduna River, and then governors meet over minimum wage, local government autonomy. So the next meeting will be holding today. And also we're seeing Orusaye report 4 months after federal government foot drags on merging of the MDAs. Delay causing anxiety among civil servants. And then we have SGF, head of service, keep mum. More detail of the story as well can be found on page 4, and that's all on Leadership newspaper.
On the Guardian newspaper, out of pocket, high cost of care hits public hospitals, uninsured patients. You can find details on page 6, and then we have an infographic that says hospitals insist on deposit payment before care. Patients, caregivers stranded over 150% hike in cost. Patients explore cheaper, unsafe alternatives and herbal concoctions. Over 90% of Nigerians still have no health insurance. Northeast home to over 2 million uneducated children, says UNICEF. Details can be found on page 9. Nigeria recorded 75,000 new HIV infections in 2023, says NACA. Details can be found on page 5. Naira depreciation at 17.8 trillion naira to public debt in 3 months. MURIC Arewa Group knocks Sokoto government over passage of anti-sultanate bill. Details can be found on page 5. Nigeria records 54 deaths, 1,579 cases in 32 states. This is on cholera outbreak. Details can be found on page 3. Shadow of presidential aircraft hangs over NAS emergency sitting today. Hundreds of APC members decry hunger, decamped PDP in Ondo. You can find details on page 7, and these are the major stories on the Guardian newspaper.
Right, let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. Stress tests on banks necessitated recapitalization coming from the CBN. And we have government has to meet to avert the strike in varsities. And on page 21 of the paper, federal government banks begin talks on nationwide broadband rollout. And we are seeing coming from Kaduna State the 423 billion naira debt theft rather. Erufai sues Kaduna Assembly challenges probe. 423 billion naira theft. Erufai sues Kaduna Assembly challenges the probe. And on Dangote Refinery, crude supply crisis threatening oil investment operators warn the federal government. Federal government urged to deepen investors' confidence. Dangote allies fear over refining fire. More detail found in the paper. Tinubu backs NDLEA to end drug abuse and trafficking. We can see cross section of the book launch as well as what is happening concerning the NDLEA and the talks that are holding. More detail found on page 12. National Assembly resumes Plan 2023 budget implementation extension. You can find that in the paper. How we killed commercial sex worker for ritual coming from a suspect. And then PDP candidate receives APC defectors vow to unseat Aida Tiwa. And detail of that can be found on page 10, and that's all on the Punch newspaper.
On the Nation newspaper, the big story: banks face tough conditions in recapitalization drive. CBN targets strong banks capable of supporting government $1 trillion GDP by 2030. Federal government moves to avert shutdown of varsities. Panel raised after Pali. You can find details on page 4. Oyo lawmakers at daggers drawn with speakers. You can find details on page 15. 17 members form group. Police plan data centers for 774 council headquarters. Edo female lawmakers sent out of plenary for improper dressing. Both stories can be found on page 2 and 5. President backs NDLEA Save Our Families Advocacy campaign. Details can be found on page 3. Economy attracted $24 billion FX inflows in the first quarter. CBN ends Form M verification. You can start with the details on the front page. Tinubu not discriminating against North, says Shetima. Details can be found on the front page. And we have National Assembly reconvenes today after recess. Details on page 25. Erufai sues Kaduna Assembly. Details can be found on page 3. And that's all the news on the Nation newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at the Daily Times newspaper. Federal government has to end meeting, agree on amicable resolution. Detail found on page 4. Erufai drags Kaduna State Assembly to court for defamation. And on the World Drug Day, Tinubu rallies support for drug war. We will not gag the press, federal government assures. And then the big story on the paper, we are seeing is saying drop your arms, embrace dialogue. COAS advises agitators and others, says it's only in a peace atmosphere that the economy of any country could thrive. And on 2023 budget, National Assembly set to extend implementation of capital component holds emergency session today. We are considering a wide range of issues, Senate spokesman is saying. And I think we should talk a little about the World Drug Day. I mean, that was yesterday. But then I think it's important because you and I have been looking at the issue of drug abuse. And then I think, was it last year or early this year, where we saw the president looking at setting up a center where they can start looking into rehabilitation of those who are into drug abuse, as well as so much emphasis of, abusing of drugs, and then trying to help people see the reason why, as small as even paracetamol, you can actually abuse it, because each time we look at drug, we look at it the bigger picture, cannabis, codeine, and the rest of it. But I think it's important because looking at the issue of drug is something that, just like I think I've said it in a number of our shows, whereby it seems as if the number of people who are running mad on our street is increasing by the day, and this is nothing but drug
Yeah.
abuse because they have become so addicted to the point that it has affected them mentally. And then let's add it up with the fact that with the hardship going on, Rachel, a number of people have resorted to, them just take the drugs and then just quench the stress and all of that. And before you realize it, you've got so used to it that you can't get out. And it's no longer about just teenagers or youth. We've seen people as old as even 60 that are into drugs. So that is to tell you, it's not restricted to a particular age group any longer. You can talk about it in the wide range of people who get involved in it. So I'm happy that I'm seeing the support coming from the president to NDLEA, but we need to do more. Of course, we've given the NDLEA kudos because we've seen them busting a number of cartels and all of that. But I said it's not about the smaller ones. We have the bosses on top that we need to start from the root cause of the problem. So I think it's very important we look at this issue of drugs and then what can be done to actually help people who are going through it, because they are beginning to change names. Richard, it will surprise you when you go to a primary school, some of the drugs that these kids are exposed to, you have no idea that such names exist whatsoever. So I want the government to, we know that they are getting involved, but they should be more involved in the issue of, helping people to fight this issue of drug abuse we're having.
So a family makes up community. Meaning every mad person you see on the street, mentally disabled person you see on the street as a result of substance abuse came from a home and from a family. And I am going towards this direction because I believe that parenting needs to change. Because the numbers are increasing. So what it means is that substance abuse is on the increase. And you don't know your gene. You don't know how it's going to end for you. Some have abused certain substance and never ended up on the street. And you never even took as much as they did and you're already on the street. Now, why am I saying so? Is that this liberal way of saying everybody can do what they want to do should not be condoned when it comes to substance abuse. And that is the take home for me for this World Drug Day and then a war against drug, where we see the NDLEA is saying, you know what, there should be availability, and I hope that they make that available for drug test kits at homes. When your child comes back, you test that child for any substance, alcohol, because the test kit will show what alcohol this person has in their, what substance rather this person has in their system. Because this thing, right, takes away your life completely. So you can't joke about it. This is not where you allow your children to be social to the extent that they destroy their life. This is where when you find any substance in any child's body, you lock them up until it's out and you tell them they dare not try it again. I believe that when it comes to substance abuse, there is need for high iron hands handling at home, because everybody you see out there came out from one house or the other. Nobody just appeared out of nowhere and they are just living their lives. No. They came from a family, they came from a background, they left a particular home to go and do what. A matter of fact, we can even say they are orphans. Well, orphans don't even abuse substance because they are busy trying to make ends meet. Most of the people out there are people who came out from privileged homes that had parents providing for them and then abuse such privileges. If we are going to be honest, most of the people we have abusing substance are not even the poor, because the poor are out there trying to look for their daily bread. But you who have it at the platter of gold are now using your privileges to cause harm and damage to yourself. So something needs to be done about it. And this is the part where I solely believe that the fight against drug remains a community thing. It remains a community thing. When you sit down and you allow someone continue to sell abusive substance and dangerous substance in your community without saying anything, it is your child that will go and patronize that person. It is your neighbor. And if your neighbor goes, and if your child happen to be a friend with that neighbor, you'll be influenced and all of that. So why do we sit down and fold our hands and say, no, it's a community work. I believe that most especially when it comes to substance abuse, maybe we can leave the bigger work that is the season of those consignment where we see the NDLE seizing 800 kgs and all of that. But when it comes to fighting it, that we have a reduced number of people who have abused substance, to me, I believe that the majority of that work is a community work. There's no other way we can tell. We can push it anyway, but I believe it's a community and a family war. So I just hope that some Nigerian out there is charged to say, you know what, yes, I'm not going to let this person to continually pollute our community, because if today is a neighbor's child that is in the rehab, my child too can be tomorrow, because this person is thriving in our community.
Very true. And looking at the team for the year that said the evidence is clear, therefore invest in prevention. You could tell that the evidence is clear from what we're seeing.
Yes.
The number of people that are getting involved. Back was then, just like you rightly mentioned, I mean, you could say then that, okay, it's really the privilege, but right now the privilege also even get those who are not really privileged to get involved in drug abuse. And this is really something that we should be very, very careful about, because making the environment conducive, and then we then end up seeing a lot of people, getting involved in getting into drugs and all of that. So just like we said, it starts from the family, goes down to the community, as well as to even the larger society. So let's just play our part and make sure we do the right thing. And I think that is all on Daily Times newspaper.
On Daily Sun newspaper, the big story: minimum wage, Labour rejects Tinubu's position, describes president pronouncement to consult with stakeholders as unfortunate, silent on next step. Governors meet over wage and others. You can find details on page 6. We're not fighting anyone, Fubara tells Senate. Kalu urges Wike governor to sheath sword. You can find details on page 27. Tinubu rallies support for drug war, launches Save Our Families campaign, commits to prevention. On Rivers violence, police declare ex-militant leader wanted as government identifies prime suspect in dynamite explosion. Nnamdi Kanu moves to appeal court over jurisdictional issues. Federal government reaffirms commitment to free, responsible journalism. Federal government ASU move to avert fresh strike. Still on Daily Sun, Senate holds emergency session, may consider supplementary budget for Tinubu's presidential jets. Details can be found on page 6. Femi Otedola acquires additional 183 million naira stake in First Bank Nigerian Holding. Details can be found on page 6. And that's all the news on Daily Sun newspaper.
Okay, at the moment, let's take a break so we can let you, wrap your head around the emergency meeting that the Senate will be holding today, as well as we are seeing that ASU is saying we are going on strike, but the federal government is seeing what they can do to make sure that that strike does not hold, because it's very important, as well as we're looking at journalism being free, where the president has promised his support for free journalism. So we have a number of things, as well as you can air your view as well on the World Drug Day. What do you feel about drug abuse, substance abuse, and many other things that you think is a menace to us in the society? So when we come back, we will continue with the paper review. Please stay tuned with us.
Make your everyday informative, make your everyday count. Know your world, daily affairs, national and international, with authentic news events as they unfold on Global News and Zoom on Nigeria, Monday to Friday at 1 p.m.
Welcome back. It's still the Dailies. We have been looking at a number of stories on the paper. The emergency meeting that will be holding by the Senate, and then we're seeing as well the presidency support for NDLEA as we fight drug. We know that yesterday was the World Drug Day, so looking at the fact that the evidence is clear and therefore we need to work on prevention. That is what the team is for this year. Therefore, it's everybody's responsibility to see what we can do to actually collectively prevent this from becoming more harm than already it is causing to us. I still have Rachel with me in the studio. Thanks so much, Rachel.
You're welcome, Philip.
All right, let us take a look at the next paper, which is the Daily News Herb newspaper. Governors meet over minimum wage and local government autonomy. More detail found in the paper. How Aso Rock lavished 244 million naira on tires in 24 hours. This is an investigation, with the writer saying State House paid for supply of tires week Tinubu's government marked first year in office. One of two companies paid to supply tires inactive on CAC website. So this is an investigation that really needs to be looked into. How comes are we having change of tires? Meanwhile, the tires were changed shortly after the president was being sworn into office. So you can look into that paper and air your view on that. Dangote refinery fire minor accident contained. This is coming from the management. Says no cause for alarm. Only one section was affected, and we can see a picture story showing us the thick smoke that is coming out from that apartment or that department that was being affected by the fire. One child operators murder VIO personnel in Abuja. This is sad one, and this is where we need our VIO and road safety. And I keep saying, Richard, this we might be looking at it like one of those simple words, but believe you me, these are the people that are faced with so much danger on our highway.
Yeah.
I was in a commercial vehicle one time, Richard, and someone was saying that whether he's being paid millions or dollars, he would never accept the job of a VIO or a road safety personnel. Reason why? Because they are at risk.
They are.
Richard, they are at risk. Imagine you, maybe a truck coming with so much ammunition and you have to stop them. We rarely see them using arms or anything.
Yeah.
So I'm really wondering, now we're seeing that this VIO person had to die because of all these one chance operators and all of that. So I hope, I was looking forward to us having all these CCTVs on our highways. I mean, it can actually help us to track down the driver, track down the plate numbers and all of these. These are things that other nations are doing, and I'm looking forward to seeing, rather than us seeing this money for change of tires, we can actually channel this money to having all of this, cameras, various places, so I can actually help the road safety as well as the VIO to be able to curtail all of these things that happen to them in their place of, primary assignments.
In the past, Stella, there have been such stories where road safety official, as usual, where you've seen them in action, how they do certain things, will enter inside a vehicle, and one did that, and they never found him up till date.
True.
And yes, it is a risky job, and it is very dangerous. At the same time, there are also code of conduct that these people break.
Should follow.
When you give a ticket or you impound a car, these are the things that you are supposed to follow due process. Now, I've had many times where their officers, that is their bosses at a bigger rank, will come out and say they are not supposed to enter any car and follow the person. Because the moment you stop a car and the car is wanted, you're supposed to seize it there and then. You're not supposed to enter the car. We've seen them in action doing things wrongly. And most of the times it ended them either injured or missing or killed, like we can see. There's a way it's being done. When you stop a vehicle and you're seizing a vehicle, you're giving them the ticket, it's expected that you are seizing that vehicle the key, and the person goes and make any payment or does any renewal, you are the one expected to take that car to where it's going to be impounded before the person comes and recover it. But at times, I've been in taxi in the past where I'm just sitting down and then the road safety officials will just stop the taxi man and they'll just enter inside. They are not expected to behave like that. So it is a very, very risky job, and we are expecting them also to be able to safeguard their life. If not, we will keep having this kind of incidents outside, because now how did the VIO ended up in this vehicle and ended up dead and having turned out to be a one chance vehicle, and then now how what happened that the VIO officer ended up inside. You have to ask all those questions, so you just know that something didn't go as it's supposed to be for this to happen. So I just hope that because every time we keep talking about how we see certain things and they are not supposed to be like that, but when they happen, I just hope that it's a lesson for our road inspection officers, be it the road safety, be it the VIOs and all of that. And I just hope that in the end they improve their conduct, and at the same time we adhere as citizens, because in the end it's two sides. We have our problems. If everybody was to be law abiding, they won't be needed in the first place. But they are there for those who won't, and so it's important. But then let them also safeguard their lives the best way they can.
And as a Rachel, while you were talking, I can actually picture myself. I've also been in that situation, but particularly this was coming from the vehicle inspector officers, VIO. I've hardly had encounter with road safety, because basically most time we see them on the highway. You rarely see them, if not for, just like you said, we are not law-abiding citizens, so definitely there will be need for them to be there. But basically, they are mostly on the highways, because that is where we see this number of casualties coming over and over. But just like you said, there are certain conduct that's expected of them, as well as from sometimes I just say maybe it's because of the way experience that they have faced that make them to just get into the car and all of that. But I just hope that they take that as well. Still on Daily News Hub, we have Sokoto government still after Sultan Mori cries out again. You can read detail in the paper. Pro-Wiki protesters masterminded explosion to force emergency rule, coming from the Rivers State Governor Fubara. Presidential jet, Senate convenes emergency sitting over supplementary budget today. You can read detail of that in the paper. Cost of new presidential jet to be included in 2024 supplementary budget, coming from a source. But we will recall that yesterday the Senate president categorically said there is no any plan for getting a private jet for the president and the vice president. But here we're seeing a source trying to say that it will be included in the supplementary budget. All fingers are crossed. Let us see what the supplementary budget, what are some of the things that will be listed there. ASU gives federal government 2 weeks ultimatum over 2009 agreement. You can find that in the paper. Kenya protests hijacked by criminals, coming from President Ruto. You can read detail of that in the paper. Tinubu not discriminating against the North, coming from the Vice President. And we have the 432 billion naira probe Erufai drags Kaduna Assembly to court. And that's all in Daily News Hub newspaper.
I mean, Tele, before we move to the next paper, what happened in Kenya, or what is currently happening in Kenya, has been in most of our papers. And I know in the past, we just kind of, when it comes to trying to compare, right, between countries, we go far. And I want to bring us down to Africa, looking at what happened in Kenya. When I believe that I see a government that wants growth, because in the end, you are for the people. I keep saying that that's what democracy is all about. The first part is that we put you there. Then the second part is that you play your due diligence back to the people that put you in that position. And even if, right, of course, protests are always hijacked. That is why there is a need for security personnel to make sure that the people who are out there with a real genuine cause are protected, and then the purpose for that protest is not thwarted because of a few individuals that are probably sponsored and of course don't have brains, because you should know that when people are out there to voice out is for growth. When Nigerians are talking about certain policies, why are you not taking it back when you're literally seeing the effect on your citizens? We are seeing the government, the Kenyan government, going back on the taxes because the people have come out on the street saying, you know what, this new tax policy is not going to help us. We barely are surviving the ones we already have, and you're adding more to it. How are we going to see through? And I think that with or without it being bloody, the Kenyan government would have listened to its people, because it is a protest by the people whom you expect to pay this tax. And they are telling you this is what it will mean to us. And if the people you are expecting to comply with you are not willing to, it's going to be a problem. So I just hope that the Nigerian government keeps ego aside, right? And do governance as is expected. That it is for the people, whether you like it or not. Whether you see yourself at that top position, it is for the people in the end of the day. And we kept on saying, President Bola Tinubu, we don't expect you to feel our pains. We just want you to listen and act. And I believe that the Kenyan government have acted, because the people have said, no, we are not accepting these new tax policies and all of that. And going back on it doesn't make the president less a president or a bad leader. I think it makes him a good leader. Now you go back on the drawing board, you sit down and re-strategize. Okay, this is the economic problem we are going through. We thought new tax policies will help, but apparently it won't. You re-strategize and come up with a new policy to help your economy. I'm expecting the same from the Nigerian government, and I hope that we learn from other leaders what truly democracy is and what governance is in the end of the day.
Very true, Rachel. Even though we've been trying to dodge this whole Kenyan thing, but we cannot totally, say we were not going to focus on it, because that is the reality. Right now, we're saying that the Nigerian army have sent our soldiers for peacekeeping in Guinea-Bissau. How did we get to where it is, to the point that we have to send soldiers there? It's all about the government not doing what they expected to do, and then the people are tired of the way things are, and they have to actually voice out. We are paying you to be on seat, so we're expecting you to listen to us. So just like you rightly stated, I just hope that the Nigerian government will take a leaf. It's not all about reshuffling your leaders. We saw when we had those pocket of coup going on, and then certain African leaders were shaking and all of that. It's not about shaking, but it's looking inward and say, what are we not doing right now? What can we correct? So this meeting that the Senate will be holding today, Richard, I'm just trying to picture. You are consulting, there's going to be supplementary budget, defense, and then the minimum wage. Is it part of it or it's not part of it? Is what I do not understand. And just by the side is we're also having NEC meeting, because the governors and the local government will also be meeting. So I'm just hoping whatever it's going to be, let there be synergy, but the long run, let it be that the people are at the heart of all of these meetings eventually.
On Nigerian News Direct, the big story, 2 weeks ultimatum. Clock is ticking, address our demands, ASU to federal government. Consultation to continue across ministry to address education woes. A statement from the minister. Details can be found on page 3. Data breach, federal government to launch pilot phase of data exchange system by year end. CBN discontinues price verification system portal. Free market cannibalism, oil sector regulators must do better. Cholera outbreak, Sanwo-Olu woos financiers for 70 million gallon Adian water project. War on drugs, NDLEA discovers 9.5 hectares of cannabis farms, destroy 23.75 tons in Osun. Details can be found on page 15. That's all the news on Nigerian News Direct.
A new Telegraph newspaper coming from the CBN Governor Cardoso, he's saying capital raise will create stronger, more resilient banks. You can read detail in the paper. NNPCL Limited uncovers 165 cases of illegal refineries in 1 week. And Shetima Tinubu determined to redefine modern leadership concepts, while we are interfering on federal roads coming from Delta government. And then we have Sultan urges citizens to stop insulting the military. Nnamdi Kanu appeals court ruling on jurisdiction. More detail on page 2 and 7. Big story 2023 budget, lawmakers in dilemma over capital appropriation to extend decision on implementation requests allegedly forwarded by Tinubu as initial deadline ends in 3 days. More detail on page 2. ASU reconsiders decision on strike after meeting with the federal government. You can look up that on page 3. Governors hold final decision on minimum wage and local government autonomy. Prevention, most potent weapon in curbing drug abuse coming from the president. And we have Kenya president withdraws tax plan after deadly protests. More detail found on page 5. Alleged 432 billion naira fraud. El-Rufai slam 1 billion naira right suit on Kaduna Assembly. Attempt to bomb hotel presidential ploy to impose state of emergency coming from Fubara. And we have a study here that says daily multivitamins doesn't help users live longer. So if you think that consuming all of these multivitamins, you have to look inwardly, rather consume more of the natural fruits than taking multivitamins. More detail of that study can be found on page 6, and that's all a New Telegraph newspaper.
On Sporting Sun newspaper, the big story indeed is wage demands too high for Marcel. You can find details on page 6. Mbappe's lawyers to sue PSG for 100 million euros over unpaid wages. Conte of Shimen's future doesn't depend on me. Details can be found on page 6. We have complete 2024/25 EPL fixtures inside. Details can be found on page 2. And we have Messi breakup. Details can be found at the back page. Furious woman rattles off her boyfriend's Copa America ticket, gives away his signed Argentina shirt after claiming he cheated on her with her best friend. Details can be found at the back page. Ten Hag on verge of signing new Man United contract. Euro 2024 Southgate helped England equal unwanted Euros record. Man City considering massive £180 million swap with Real Madrid. Details can be found inside the paper. Usyk relinquishes IBF title ahead of Joshua. The boys fight. Details can be found at the back page. Chelsea ready to break £150 million transfer record for Isaac. Saudi Arabia plus major offensive for Van Dijk. Details can be found inside the paper. And we have Leo rejects the creative Al Hilal offer. Details inside the paper. Trabzonspor begins talk to keep Onachu. Details can be found on page 6. NFF targets world-class coach for Super Eagles. Chelsea ready to break £115 million transfer record for Isaac. You can find details inside the paper, and that's all the news on Sporting Sun newspaper.
On Business Day newspaper, Ethiopia, UAE, Turkey strip Nigerians of visa on arrival, e-visa. More details can be found on the front page as well as on page 30. NNPC crook war fingered in Dangote. This is coming from the international oil company SPAT. More detail in the paper. USA Chapel Hill Denham raises 245 billion naira to boost Nigerians' infrastructure. CBN building resilient banks to support federal government $1 trillion GDP target coming from Kadosu. Bomb scare Fubara seed distraction targeting state of emergency in the rivers. Detail on so can be found in the paper, and that is all on Business Day newspaper. Also, how far we can go on the program this morning. Thank you, Rachel, for doing this.
You're welcome, Sally.
And thank you as well to our viewers, our supporters, and every other person that made this program a success. We look forward again to doing this tomorrow. Do have a great day.